mesmerizing prose, heart-stopping action, and startling turns of events that feel both honest as well as astounding. Please join with passage in warmly welcoming Tania and Malik.
Thanks, Joanna. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I also want to thank Book Passage. This is where I first started writing my novel. This is where I brought in the first chapter, and I met my writing group, and I wrote a large chunk of the novel in this store. And so it really feels like coming home, coming full circle, being back here. So I want to thank you all for sharing this evening with me. So the idea for my novel, for Three Bargains, came to me actually 10 years before I sat down to write the story. I was walking in a park in Columbus, Ohio, and I had just gotten off the phone with my father, and I have a very close relationship with my father. And I was thinking what it would mean not to have a father like him. He would go to any lengths for his children, for my brother and for me. And I was just thinking what it would mean not to have him in my life, or to have a different father. And it had come to me that I'd read stories of children searching for their birth mother, or mothers searching for children they'd given up for adoption. But I'd never really read a story of a father, of a man, going back in time and looking for a child lost to the mists of time. And when I began to write, I felt I really had to know who was this man, what were the events that would cause him to lose this child, to give up this child, and what circumstances would lead him back in search for this child again. And that's how I really started. That was the idea from which this whole novel sprung. Where I start my story, the little young boy is 12 years old. He has come to live in the town of Gorapur. And this is a small town in northern India. It's about 4 hours, approximately 4 hours north of Delhi, the capital city, Delhi. And his father works in this town for the most powerful man called Avtar Singh. Avtar Singh owns the largest timber factory, and he also runs the town with an iron fist. His father has worked out a deal with Avtar Singh so that his wife, Madan's mother, will work in the Avtar Singh's household as a maidservant, and the whole family will get to stay in servant quarters of Avtar Singh's house. Madan has come to Avtar Singh's attention because he can speak English. He has grown up in a small town so far, in a small nondescript village actually, and there was an old army colonel who teaches the boys English, and he's picked this up. And Avtar Singh senses his intelligence and wants to educate him. But Madan's father is unfortunately a man of very limited vision and doesn't want to see his son rise higher than him. And so he doesn't encourage Madan. He in fact resents the attention Avtar Singh pays Madan. And so Madan is very torn between these two characters, these two men in his life, these two examples of manhood and fatherhood. And in the scene I am about to read, Madan's father has been derelict in his duties with Avtar Singh. He's actually a goon for Avtar Singh and collects protection money from the town's businesses. And he hasn't been doing that lately. He's been doing some illegal business on the side, and Avtar Singh has called him in to answer for his bad behavior. And Madan's father drags Madan along. Madan stared at the back of his father's bent head, his uncombed hair sticking out in all directions. His father stood in front of the same great desk, hands clasped in front of him, his mumbled apologies worsening Avtar Singh's mood. Madan wished to be anywhere but here. Avtar Singh swung his chair from side to side. What is the meaning of this? Disappearing for days, work half done. You promised this would end when your family came here. He stopped the motion of his chair by slapping his hand on the desk. Madan and his father jumped. How many chances have I given you? His father shifted his weight but gave no answer. This is the last time we repeat this scene. Avtar Singh waved them away. Do your collections first. They haven't been done these last few days. Let's start with that, and then we shall see. The machines sounded even louder in the factory once they left the quiet office. But before they got too far, Avtar Singh called Madan back. He held onto Madan's arm, pulling him closer to his chair. All through life, you learn from people around you what to do and what not to do. A forest is made of many trees. It's always best to choose the strongest one to lean against. You understand? Madan nodded quickly. He was keen to leave, sure that Avtar Singh calling him back must have upset his father further. Avtar Singh patted Madan on the cheek. His hand lingered there for a moment. He seemed unwilling to lift it off and allow Madan to leave, but he said, "Good. Go now and see to Prabhu." He checked himself. "Your father." Madan accompanied his father on his rounds, but Avtar Singh's words troubled him. He could try as he might, he couldn't shake the notion that the man before him seemed no more than a roadside reed, easily crushed under the weight of any passing bullock cart. "He built this town, so I guess he deserves some recompense," his father sneered, slipping another roll of notes in his pocket. At the servants' quarters, Madan counted the collections and rolled the notes into neat bundles. Swati, that's his sister, twirled around the courtyard, and Bapu, and that's what he calls his father, Bapu, sat on the charpai, watching her through the hazy smoke of his beedi. Swati's long skirt billowed around her slim ankles, and she sang a rhyme to her doll about the shy moon hiding from the morning sun. "So much money, Bapu," Madan said. With the final count done, he walked out with his father, who was to deposit the collections back at the factory. Once outside, his father said, "Wait a minute." He took out the wad of notes from his pocket and, separating more than a few 100-rupee notes, returned the rest. "Bapu, what are you doing? Avtar Singh said not to." "Bapu?" His father had to stay out of trouble with Avtar Singh. There would be no more chances, not for his father and not for the rest of them either. Things come to a head after this, and Madan's father commits an unforgivable act which has brutal consequences for him and allows Avtar Singh to drag Madan further into his world. It's a very hard and unforgiving world. It's a place of commonplace violence. And in this next scene, Madan has grown. He's about 18 and has become Avtar Singh's surrogate son, his right-hand man, and has found his focus and identity with Avtar Singh. And this scene is more to give you a glimpse into the world of Gorapur and Avtar Singh's world. Stand. Madan reached through the smoke curling up from the burning incense stick and over the jars of gulkand and betel nuts and took out a pack of gold flakes. He flipped open the cover, tapping out one cigarette. The paanwala struck a match and lit it. "Put it on my account, Bittu Bhai," he said. "Oh, Madan Babu, Madan Babu." Madan turned in the direction of the supplicating tone. Shuffling up to Madan was the crooked figure of 1984, his arm cradling a shanai, the double reed wood instrument scuffed and stained from years of rough use. His right arm stayed by his side, straight and stiff, as if in a splint. Bittu shooed him away. "Get out of here." 1984 did a small backward dance, but kept his eyes on Madan, grinning, waiting, jiggling the shanai in his good hand. "It's fine," said Madan. "Give me 2 more. He tucked the cigarettes into the breast pocket of 1984's shirt. "Salam, Saab. Thank you, Saab." 1984 bobbed up and down, following Madan through the market. Madan hurried on, nodding absently at passers-by who wished him Ram Ram. There was no time to stop and chat. All they wanted was his support in approaching Avtar Singh for assistance to ask for money for their daughter's wedding or to acquire a contract for a government tender. With his lurching gait, 1984 kept up behind Madan. No one could recall 1984's real name, and even 1984 claimed he couldn't remember. When asked where he used to live or who he was born to, 1984 just chuckled. He had come to their notice after the riots following Indira Gandhi's assassination, when in towns like Gorapur, with their volatile mixture of Sikhs and Hindus, vengeful mobs pulsed down the streets, torch in one hand, axe in the other. Up in a colony on the east side of town, 1984 was part of a group of Sikhs dragged out of their homes and cars by their turbans. The mob shoved car tires around their waists, doused them with petrol, and set them on fire. Their women screamed, their babies cried, but mobs of any kind don't listen. Rubber melts quickly, adhering to the skin, and in intense bursts of flames, these men were pools of grist and bubbling rubber. 1984 ran to the canal when the mob moved on. They had used too big a tire on him, a truck tire on his scrawny frame, and he held it up till they were gone, slipping out of the ring of fire before it consumed him like the rest of his neighbors. God saved me, Madan Babu, he said. God causes the problem and then saves you from it, like a policeman who steals so he'll have a job. You're a fool, 1984. Madan's derision didn't affect 1984. He salaamed and grinned and asked for a bread pakora, his favorite food. The market was his home now. He followed people around, spreading news and gossip, earning money playing his old shanai badly and shrilly with one useful hand. Known only to everyone by the year he sprung into the downstream of consciousness. Madan was in the office when Avtar Singh received news of the mob onslaught on his town, when he handed out missives to his men to go and control the streets of Gorakhpur, to do what the police were unable or unwilling to do. For those few days, as the town descended into an eerie calm, and Madan served Avtar Singh endless cups of tea, he waited and watched to see if Avtar Singh would reveal to Madan what to think about the frightening events outside their door. For even in all the fear and confusion, people still had opinions and took sides. Avtar Singh's ancestors were Sikhs, but through marriage and time, his faith had become twofold, the temple on Tuesdays and the Gurdwara one morning each week. Yet, as Madan followed a pensive Avtar Singh from home to factory and back again, he realized that Avtar Singh had no side but his own. These few years later, now that the raised buildings had been rebuilt and the hustle and bustle had returned, 1984 stood as a solitary reminder to Avtar Singh of that time when the reins of the town slipped briefly from his tight grip. 1984 knew this better than anyone. That is why he would not follow Madan past the borders of the crowded market. His true survival, 1984 knew, depended on his staying away from the factory and out of Avtar Singh's sight. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will take a few questions, but before that, if you have to leave, I want to say, please help yourself to a cookie before you leave. This is made by Pushcart Pies, and the baker extraordinaire is right here, Kathy Petrick. So please help yourself.
Hi, Tania. Could you tell us about your writing process, please?
All right. Well, as I said before, that I started writing the book over here. I met some other wonderful writers, and we formed a group. And what we would do was we'd meet every few weeks, and it was my goal to bring in a chapter every time we met. So even if it may not be a very good chapter, or it may just be a draft, I would bring in a chapter every time we met. And then they would give me their feedback, and I would not incorporate that. I would put that aside and just move on. And I kept writing chapter after chapter, bringing, till I was done with the full first draft of the book. And when I was done with that, then I went back and started incorporating their changes and their recommendations. So I think it helped me keep myself focused and keep myself. Otherwise, I would have got derailed if I started going back and making changes as I went along. So I think it was just focus and just keeping on track.
Did the idea motivate you to write a book? I mean, once you thought about this concept, did you think, I want to write a book about this, or is that close to family?
No, it was, the idea had come to me and I sort of percolated it a bit. I percolated this idea in my mind for 10 years. And then I thought, I want to do something with my life. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I thought if I didn't write this book now, at that point when I started, I would never write it. And so I didn't want to look back 10 or 20 years and regret not writing the story that I had in my mind. And so that's how it all started.
Did you have difficulty finding a publisher, or?
Well, I think as much difficulty as any debut author has. I did have a little bit of difficulty. I mean, I was lucky that I got a good agent right away. I got one of the agents. I had a list of agents, and I got one of them on my list. And what I think think it took a couple of years for us to get a publisher, and it was also because I was writing 2009, 2010, when the bottom had sort of fallen out of the publishing industry, and it was just a very rough time at that time. So I think I had to wait a little till everything calmed down, and then we found a publisher. Yeah.
So they often say that first novels are autobiographical, and from what you're reading, it doesn't sound at all this way. I'm just curious, how, like, did you have to do any research, or how, how'd you feel like you probably didn't hang out with people like 1984? So I'm just curious about that part of the book.
Well, the town itself, Gorakhpur, is actually a fictional town. I know a lot of people end up looking for it up on the map, but it's not a real town. It's based on my father's hometown, which is in the same area, the sort of same place, but I needed more creative freedom. So Gorakhpur is the only fictional town in the whole book, and there's one more town called Jeet's Megacity. Those are the two fictional places. But a lot of the characters are all from my imagination, mostly, or things I've read or seen and I visited the town. It's actually the relationships, I think, which were more inspiring to me. I mean, I was inspired by friendships I had or relationships I had with other people. Sorry, I have a sore throat. From the relationships, I have a very good friend, and there's a very strong friendship in the book, and that's very much based on my friend who stood by me, even when I was very, very absent in her life. And I just saw the relationships were more of the things that inspired me. The characters and such were all from my imagination. But, yeah.
You were born and raised in America? Or?
No, I was born in India. I was born in Delhi, and I have very close ties there. All my family is still there. And I just spent 2 years there, and we just got back in June, though I lived in Marin for a long time.
Did you write any of the book in India?
No, actually I didn't. When it was too close. I was too close, and I think it was easier to write here in the U.S. because I had perspective and distance, and so I wrote most of the book here. I would go back just to refresh my memory, but most of the book was written here.
And I must commend you because you really made a breakthrough. A lot of what I've been reading by Indian women writers, two things. The language is so bombastic, and I love the simplicity of your work. And secondly, as this person mentioned ahead of me, it's usually autobiographical or biographical. And I think your creation of just total fiction, 1984, my God, what a name, what a wonderful name. I'm very happy to hear you.
Thank you.
And I hope you go far with your. I'm very glad that you didn't submit your writing as you went along.
Yeah.
It's a very tedious and very dangerous thing to do.
Thank you. Yes.
How has Marin influenced your writing?
Well, I have a dog, and I have this beautiful trail, hiking trail near my house. And every morning I go for a hike with my dog on this trail, and this really helped center me. And I think it's the outdoors in Marin is what really helped me. I go for hikes every morning, and it helped me think and sort out problems, plot points I had in my head. So every morning and evening we go for walks, and it's just the beauty of this place, and just the serenity really helped focus me and just allowed me places to breathe and think and stretch my legs. So that, of course, and then of course meeting my writing group here. They're just such wonderful writers and such like places like Book Passage that are so encouraging to writers. I think that really helped.
I think it's so brilliant how you just kept writing and you didn't break that flow. But then you did take their ideas and incorporate it. Was that something you learned in a class, or was that just instinct in a story, or?
I know. I think it was just how I felt I needed to get the story down before I lost it, and so I just went on. And I think people ask me, who was your audience? Is it a Western audience? Is it an Indian audience? And I was actually just writing to my two writing partners who are right here, and they were my audience because I was just focused. If it worked for them, it stayed in the book. If it didn't work for them, I changed it or I altered it. But they were my audience, and I was just focused on them and their reactions. And so I think that really helped, but I really wanted to get it all down and then go back and see what I could change. Yeah.
So you chose to make your central character a man.
Is that a reflection of your perception that women are still too restricted in India to do some of the things you wish to do with your central character?
That's an interesting question. Well, I wanted to write a story about fathers, and so that's why I thought it would be best told from point of view of a man, and father going back in search for his child. But I didn't want to forget the women, and I have different women in my story that sort of the diaspora of Indian women. Madan's mother is very poor and very much a victim of her circumstances. She makes decisions that many people might not agree with, but that is because she is who she is. She's a woman, she has no options, and all she wants is a roof over her head for her children and food on their plates. Whereas some women Madan meets as he grows up are very much like the women, like the girls I used to know in school who are educated like me. I was educated in India. We had a lot of freedom. We were allowed to read and debate and talk, but yet they knew somewhere that they could do all this, but they had these social strictures that they had to follow. So even though I have a few women in there that I hope shows more the women's situation through his eyes and through his life.
So, did you have a sense of when you started writing, like an outline of where it was going to go, or did you just let it take you chapter by chapter as you wrote? And if you did it that way, what did you do when you got stuck and couldn't see where it was headed?
I actually, at the beginning, I did write an outline, and I brought it into the group, and I said, this is my outline, chapter by chapter, this is what's going to happen. And I never followed it. I never looked at it ever again. Because I think then it just came organically. And when I would get stuck, I would just keep working at it. I would still, I took it very much like a job. I would sit down every morning. My kid would go to school, and I would sit down a few hours, and I would just keep working at it. I just sort of played with it till I sort of unlocked whatever was troubling me. And that's how I did it. I just did.
So, with that process, what was your biggest dead end where you went down some road and then you realized, that's not going to work?
That's interesting. I think a couple of times I got Madan into situations which I thought, how am I going to get him out of this? Because it seemed really nice when you're taking in a chapter and they're so excited to read, and they said, oh, I can't wait to hear what happens next. And then you think, I have no idea what's going to happen. So I think, again, it was just, there were a few places, especially when he grows older, and some brutal, the turning points in the book, which I knew he had to get out of Gorapur and had to come back to look for his child. And so getting him out of Gorapur was definitely one of the biggest challenges, and how I was going to do that, and what would be the reason that he would have to come back to look for his child was another big challenge for me.
What about the events that you described in your chapter, or the entire burning? Did that actually happen, or was that?
Yes, that was after the riots after the Indira Gandhi's assassination. There was a lot of, because it was her Sikh bodyguards who assassinated her. And so there was a lot of tension, and there was a lot of rioting between Sikhs and Hindus. And those things unfortunately did happen. They were very much concentrated in Delhi, but places like Gorakhpur, north of Delhi, did get affected quite a bit. Yes?
That's what I was going to ask you, your choice of 1984. The first time I was in India was, I guess, 1984. Indira Gandhi had just been assassinated.
Right.
And then I was in Varanasi when Rajiv Gandhi was elected. Everybody was so happy.
Yes.
So is that why you chose that 1984, that period?
It was also, for me, one of the events I remembered in my life. It's like, where were you when Indira Gandhi? It was such a defining moment in my life. I went to boarding school in the Himalayas, and I still remember, being in my dormitory and hearing that Indira Gandhi had been assassinated, and looking out and seeing a Gurdwara, that's a Sikh place of worship, in flames, just across on the mountain, on the facing mountainside. And I think I was 13 then, 14, and that really stayed with me. And so I wanted to bring it in some way. And this story also starts in 1983. And so it sort of fell in with the tagline.
I'm so proud of you. I know all of your friends are. I'm excited to hear, so you had your outline that you pushed aside, and you said it was an organic process, and you hear that about some writers where literally the book is almost writing itself. It just kind of is coming together and you're going through the hurdles and whatnot. So, is the ending what you anticipated?
Well, no, because I had 3 different endings. I wrote one ending, and I remember someone said, "Oh, you know, this is a new character you're introducing right now, and it just doesn't work." And so I had 3 different endings, and so I went through a lot of different. I knew how I wanted it to end, just how it got written went through a lot of processes, and in the end.
Did you have to go through a lot with your editors?
Yes,
Did you
more
have
than
to
I
adjust?
expected.
Yeah.
I thought I'd written the perfect novel. Yes, it was, but it was all for the best, I think, in the end. She really helped focus it and give it a great structure. And, you know, actually the first half of the book she didn't touch. I think it's more the second half, which is interesting. Once you guys read it, you can see there's more that she wanted, a few changes coming in, a few more dramatic moments. But the first half of the book is almost as I wrote it.
And you have such a fascinating, background. Can you share some of it with us?
Sure.
I was reading a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I was born in Delhi, in India, and my parents actually ended up moving when I was about 3 to Africa. We lived in Kenya for a while, and then we lived in Nigeria, and then they moved to Dubai in the Middle East. So we moved, we lived there for many years in the Middle East. And I wish I could say that my dad was in some amazing, glamorous job, but he was in insurance. He was an insurance executive. And he had these jobs in these places. But while we were in Africa, my brother and I went boarding school back in India. So we would travel back and forth during vacations from India to Africa. And
was this in Darjeeling? Where was it?
no, in Missouri. Yes. And it was a Catholic boarding school run by Irish nuns, which is very interesting. And then when I got married, I moved to the States. So it's been nearly 20 years since I've been here. But I go back to India nearly every year.
You said this was almost a mission to get this book written. It was written inside of you. Do you feel like you've done what you need to, or do you have another book working there?
You know, everyone asks me what's the next book, but I was sitting so long with this idea that it feels so strange to jump into something new all of a sudden. It just feels a little strange. I know. And I don't think I'm ready to let go so much of this book right now. But I have a few ideas in my head, just I'm bouncing around, but let's see. I just have to get over that this has got done.
What did your family in India think of the book? What have they said about it?
Well, you know, my father retired 10 years ago, and he decided never to read another book. But it was his hobby. Now he just plays bridge and goes swimming and plays Scrabble with his group. But he had always wanted to write a novel. To me, when he was holding that book and he read the book, he read it, that was, to me, I'm done. That was, to me, I don't need to do anything else with this book. He held it, he's read it, and he was proud of it, and I think for me, that is it. Yeah.